effort. We'll join our correspondent, Shehu Ogunloye, for details of that story.
Here is the business news. The Central Bank of Nigeria says it will continue to intervene in the foreign exchange market as it injected $185.86 million into the retail secondary market intervention sales (SMIS). Isaac Okora, for the bank's acting director in charge of corporate communications, while confirming the auction sale, disclosed that out of the auctioned amount, only $3.14 million was sold as spot, while the sum of $182.72 million was sold as forward. Okora further explained that the overall picture of the interbank forex market was that of the optimism going by the level of access now being enjoyed by different categories of customers in both the wholesale and retail segments of the market. Nigeria detained a vessel with crew members from countries including Pakistan, Indonesia, and Ukraine for alleged theft of crude oil from a facility owned by Royal Dutch Shell PLC. The Navy said tanker MT Techne was apprehended before the dawn on April 25 while loading crude from the Afremo platform operated by Shell Nigerian unit. A Ghanaian, 3 Nigerian, and a Benin national were among the crew arrested. Organized criminal gangs have for years stolen crude from pipelines and facilities in Niger River Delta, home to the country's oil industry, either for sale to vessels waiting offshore or for local refining. Nigeria's Petroleum Ministry estimates that sometimes as much as 10% of its output is lost to theft. And finally, on the business package, the federal government has reassured Nigerians that the cash recovered in its anti-corruption drive will not be looted. This assurance was given by the Finance Minister, Kemi Adeosun, at a press conference on the World Bank IMF meeting in Washington, D.C., where she also reaffirmed government's commitment to strengthening social services to our citizens. The week-long meeting had the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, at the head of Nigerian delegation. At its close was evidence Nigeria will do more to account for missing taxes. She also disclosed that critical infrastructure, especially power and social needs like housing, got attention in the course of the meeting.
We don't intend at this stage to introduce new taxes because actually the taxes we have are quite adequate. The problem, as you've said, is enforcement. Now, if you're able to get away without paying tax, majority of people will. The job of government is to make sure it is very difficult to evade tax. Now, we've already started that job.
With the 2017 budget at hand, recovered funds are already being plowed into the economy, and the Minister of Finance said the Economic Recovery Growth Plan will bring forth the fruition of a stronger and resilient economy in the country. And that's the package on the business news. The rest of the program continues very shortly. Just join us again.
All right, many thanks to you, Shehu Ogunloye, for the business package. It's time now to look at what is trending, newspaper review.
As always, Bayo Atoyobe is right here with us for today's review session. Bayo, morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, Kesley. Okay. Good morning.
It's Friday.
Yes, Friday. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Kingsley.
All right. Yeah, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper has as its lead story, budget ready for Buhari's ascent next week. This is attributed to the Senate. Budget ready for Buhari's ascent next week, Senate. Then, of course, you have an illustration there also on the front page there indicating the procedure for the budget procedure actually is the procedure for translating the bill into an appropriation act. That what has been achieved for 2017 and what is pending. And by the way, before the Senate can do that, they'll have to get the concurrence of the House of Representatives. So, budget ready for Buhari's accent next week, according to the Senate. And immediately above that, another headline, doctors ask Buhari to slow down. That's according to the presidency. Details of the story can be found on page 6. And then below, we have 3 other headlines. PINE contract. PINE stands for Presidential Initiative for the Northeast. Babachia, that's the suspended SGF, shunts Senate panel again. That's on page 4. Why I picked Jonathan for Yaradua. Again, that's according to Obasanjo, former president. Details on page 12. Ecological fund shrinks to 33.6 billion naira, and NEC orders probe. NEC stands for the National Economic Council. Details of that story on page 4. Claire.
All right, the pilots, the Nigerian pilots, it's next, and the lead story. Babangida Aliyu, U.S. invited 12 northern governors in 2015, sought removal of Jonathan, that's a rider. And just trending down below that story, we recovered monies from Goje's house. Police deny taking any 2017 budget document and returned senators' items. And just at the bottom there, you find other trending stories that, of course, Kesley also, read out. And just a little below the nameplate, you find Buhari may assent to 2017 budget next week, and that's attributed to the Senate leader. You can have details of that story. It's on page 6. Bayo.
Yes, like you rightly said, it's the Senate leader, Ahmed Lawan, who, after a meeting with the president, gave an indication that the budget could be passed by next week. President Muhammad Buhari, it may be recalled, laid the budget before the National Assembly in December 14th, 2016. On Wednesday, chairman of the Senate Appropriation Committee, Senator Danjuma Goje, raised alarm that his home had been raided and 18 files containing critical documents of the budget have been taken away. The police, however, refuted that. They said they executed a court-ordered search warrant, and among the items they took were 38 files, 6 envelopes, and a laptop, and all of them, none contained anything about the budget. Rather, what they found were incriminating things relating to Gombe State expenditure in 2009, strategy about how to challenge opposition in Gombe in 2008, as well as an alleged involvement of a former governor in alleged murder of an Islamic leader, for which the senator was expected to answer questions at investigation. However, in the dramatic twist, the senior special assistant to the president on National Assembly matters, Senator Ita Enang, led a commissioner of police following a directive by the National Assembly that the Inspector General of Police should ensure that items taken from the residence of Senator Danjuma Goje are returned. The Senate leader said everything is being done to catch up with the time lost. The 2016 budget lifespan will expire by next Friday. There are concerns that it may lead to a shutdown. No, that is a false alarm. Even if the budget expires, the implication is that the executive has the prerogative to spend up to 60% of last year's recurrent expenditure pending the time that the budget will be passed.
For how long does the executive have that luxury to spend 60% of the appropriation for recurrent as past previous? Recurrent, of course, is not a critical issue if you know, what the challenges that we are faced with our budgeting process.
Well, the budget is composed of recurrent expenditure and capital expenditure.
That's right.
And the fear being expressed that it could lead to a shutdown. And that is why the provision that allows the government to continue spending up to 60% of the previous year's expenditure is made provided so that there won't be a shutdown pending the time that the budget that is almost passed through will scale the hurdles.
All right, let's just still on the Danjuma Goje story. We'll take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper. The front page of the Nation newspaper, of course, indicates what it's there. You can see it. That's what we are seeing there on the screen. It's actually the Nigerian pilot. That's the Nigerian pilot. Let's punch up now the Nation newspaper. If we can have the Nation newspaper right there on the screen, then we'll take a look at it. The Nation, of course, is reporting that the police is threatening Goje over murder documents, and all that. That's what Bayo just reviewed. And indeed, of course, you have That's right. You can see police threatening Goje over murder document and others. And then activists fought calls for Zakzaki's release. Details of the story can be found inside. And if we could zoom in on the other headlines, you have about 4 of them, 4 other headlines above the nameplate. If we have a zoom on that, then you can see suspended SGF fails to appear before Senate panel, and lawyer were working to perfect Kano's bail. An AFCON 2019 qualifier, Mikel out of Bafana Tile, and court rejects plea bargain with INEC officials. So those are the headlines, some of the headlines from the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning. Claire.
Okay, just of course to, as part of the Goje issue, on page 6 of the New Telegraph, we find a story that says that police vow to arrest Goje and return documents and money. But the lead story on the front page, it's still on the 2015 presidential poll, and it says, I considered defeat to avoid bloodshed. And that's coming from former President Goodluck Jonathan. Says, I was betrayed by those I relied on to win election. The riders to that, how Adoke, Chidoka, and Dudafa prevailed on him. The sad picture stories you find on the front page of the New Telegraph, very, very sad. Meningitis, victims, of course, trailing their fears, pains by survivors and victims' relatives. You'll find those picture stories right down there. And we understand that we've had casualties to over 800?
Yeah,
831.
31 now, but that was the Minister of Health was indicating that, yes, that's right. Well over 800 persons have died this year from meningitis outbreak.
But the positive news is that there's been virtually an arrest of the situation, and it's beginning to decline because of the massive inoculation as well as awareness. People are now very cautious about the meningitis.
Okay, just hold on, Bayo. Let me quickly take the last story on the front page of the Telegraph. Trending just below the picture stories. Why Buhari, all right, so of course you can find the stories right there. It also talked about the new glaucoma test that, of course, could prevent blindness. The other stories trending just above the nameplate. Governors to FJ, Paris Club refund, not favor. And of course, you find the riders to that story. Bio.
Yeah, the good news about glaucoma test is very instructive in the sense that glaucoma is the hypertension of the eye and is described as the thief of sight because virtually it shows no symptoms, and so most often than not, before you know it, it has succeeded in destroying the optic nerve. That is why with this development, glaucoma will be able to will be identified very early and is also treatable, or rather manageable. There is this human interest story that I'm sure will interest Claire. A 37-year-old Ugandan woman has set a world record in having 38 children. The Daily Monitor of Uganda says Miriam Nabatanzi Baribe had 6 sets of twins, that is 12 children.
You have that picture on the front page of the Nation, I think. I want to believe that's the picture.
He had 4 sets of twins, that's 12 children, making 24, and then 3 sets of quadruplets, making 36, and then she had 2 other single beds, making 38 children. Guess what? She got married when she was at age 12, and her husband was then 40. She has, among the children, there are 10 girls and 28 boys. She had her last baby December 2016 through a cesarean section, and the doctors felt she had had enough and they took away her uterus. Her fathers had 45 children from several women, and they comprise of quadruplets, triplets, and twins. So you could say it's the genes running in the family.
That's right. Multiple births, and then of course, multiple responsibilities, by the way. So that's probably that will go into the Guinness Book of Records.
Yes,
we hope so. But the risks are quite immense. And then of course, child marriage, it's also a factor there. If you went in pretty early and then you started making babies that many. We wish her the very best along with her husband and her children. Claire?
It's been trending. It's been trending in the social media over the weekend, and well, all right. Like Kingsley said, we wish her all the best. But that does it for newspaper review today, Friday. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be asking the question: why do you eat what you eat?
of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogerola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Cadbury Bournvita now comes in an attractive new 500-gram refill pack. Simply open and reseal after use to retain the chocolatey and creamy taste. Cadbury Bournvita. Prepare to win.
From the south-south to the northeast, southeast to the northwest, southwest to the north-central, the Future Assured project and its component, Get Involved, is restoring hope to millions of Nigerian women and children.
We are actually doing a lot under Future Assured, the program of Her Excellency Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari. And I believe what we are doing so far is impacting positively on the lives of women and children in Nigeria, particularly those in the internally displaced camps across the nation.
Get Involved supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
Thank you for joining us. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And today we're talking Nigerian food. Why do you eat what you eat? Is it simply because man must work? Or is it because you want to live long? You know what I mean? All right, let's listen to Timothy Yusuf's background report for a starter.
Nigerian food is part of the culture of the people. As a result, the variety of food eaten could easily identify where they come from. While rice, yam, plantain and beans remain common food in Nigeria, fufu recipes remain Nigerian food eaten in most homes. These are food you swallow without chewing them. They include cassava fufu, pounded yam, gari, amala and semolina. They are eaten with the Nigerian soups recipes. Most Nigerian families boast of eating at least one fufu meal a day. Rice is also a popular Nigerian food. To many, foreign food is not satisfying for an average Nigerian. In compliance with the federal government's nutrition curriculum guidelines, foods are classified as energy foods, bodybuilding foods, protective foods, or accessory food substances. Experts believe that all common foods practically offer at least 2 or more nutrients. Therefore, each contributes substantially to the overall nutritional balance of the individual and also performs several functions. But then, it is obvious that no single food contains all the nutrients needed by the body in amounts sufficient to maintain life and promote optimum growth. For example, while eggs, meat and milk might offer excellent proteins, they also provide substantial amounts of energy derived from their fat content as well as from their proteins. They therefore provide greater potential energy than the so-called carbohydrate energy foods. The question therefore is whether or not Nigerians are simply eating anything for the purpose of just quenching their hunger. Are they conscious of the need to strike a nutritional balance in what they eat? Experts on Good Morning Nigeria are set to address this and other matters arising soon.
All right, thank you very much there, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Of course, we have a broad range of experts to take on this issue of Nigerian food and eating right. First, we'd like to welcome to our studios a cardiologist. Of course, here there are implications for the heart with regard to what you eat. Is Dr. Onye Achilihu. Dr. Achilihu, a pleasure to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
My pleasure.
All right. And then we also have with us the Chief Nutritionist of the United Nations Children's Fund, that's UNICEF, Dr. Bamidele Davis Omotola. Dr. Omotola, a pleasure to have you with us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Yes. All right. All right.
Kingsley, we also have on this panel Alhaji Kabir Lawal Ango. He is a caterer and a restaurant proprietor. Alhaji Ango, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
And from our Maiduguri Network studio, we are being joined by Dr. Abba Gambo of the Department of Crop Production, University of Maiduguri. Dr. Gambo, many thanks to you for joining us.
Good morning, Clear. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians from Maiduguri.
All right, gentlemen, we welcome you to this program. But Kingsley, I think I'd like to start with Alhaji Ango, who is a caterer and a restaurant proprietor. Alhaji Ango, when people come to your restaurant, what kind of foods do they really order?
They come for African food, more of. We have yam porridge, beans porridge. Then we have what we call swallows, pounded yam, semovita, and gari. Mostly you see guests coming in fact they come for African food.
Let's take breakfast for instance, because we had a typical breakfast menu right here, but Kingsley and I didn't quite agree with that. You know, is it true that some families will go for Kingsley, what was that?
Oh, somebody said moi moi and green tea.
And green tea, moi moi and green tea, for instance.
Well, yes, it depends actually. It depends on the particular family. Because there are, based on experience, in fact, there are some that do go for akamu with moi moi, and some go for akamu with akara. But yes, it does happen as such. Some do go for green tea because they are conscious of their health.
All right. Well, Alhaji Ango, let's pause you in the meantime. And Claire, I would say that let's probably return to Dr. Abba Gambo in our Maiduguri studios, because some experts, some experts have indicated that what you eat is primarily a function of what you grow, and what you grow is also a function of your vegetation and therefore climatic condition. Professor Gambo, what do we know now about the crop production practices in different climatic conditions around the country, and therefore, the impact that has on what people eat in different parts of the country as well?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Now, for you to have a balanced diet, there has to be 4 classes of food. The 4 classes means there has to be milk and milk products, there has to be meat and meat products, there has to be fruits and vegetables, and there has to be bread and cereals. Any food taken that does not contain any of the 4 groups listed is not a balanced diet. For example, what Ogochi Paul said he took for breakfast, yam and stew, if we were to do an analysis, we have to ask him to go and eat some more because he has not taken a balanced diet in the morning. And like Leah was saying, moi moi and green tea is not even food at all. Moi moi has some proteins. By the time you eat the moi moi and then you take the green tea actually burns virtually everything you've eaten. So it's not good enough for breakfast. I proceed, and then talking about the climatic agroecological zones, from studies done in Nigeria, the southeastern part of the country are the best eaters because there is plenty of vegetables, the starch is there, the proteins are there, plenty of meat in the soup. That's how we call a typical healthy diet. By the time you come to the northern part, most especially in the northeast, where I come from, you find out that most of the food is starchy based. Brabusco, tuo, maybe of millet, maize, rice, all of them is just pure carbohydrate starch. And then the soup is usually just one single vegetable. Maybe meonkuka, amaranthus, or hibiscus, whatever, yakwa, etc. But then by the time you go to the eastern part of the country, you now have a single soup that contains more than 10 different vegetables. And then they contain also more than 5 different sources of protein. You have the snail, you have the fish, you have the crayfish, you have the meat, you have the orishirishi, and everything. That makes it balanced. Then, of course, the major problem is the milk and milk products. Most people do not take milk. They do not take any milk products for about a month. So most of the things they are eating is not balanced. Then secondly, fruits and vegetables. Nigerians do not definitely understand the importance of fruits and vegetables in our diets. People can go without food just on fruits and vegetables. It has been confirmed, and it's very good for the system. So whatever we eat, we must make sure that there is a small fruit platter, not a combination, maybe small watermelon by the side, small pawpaw by the side, small. If Ogechi will actually take the yam and also the stew with a fruit platter, and of course, maybe a glass of milk or even Lipton with milk, then I would say his food is balanced, his breakfast is balanced for the day. But as it is, Ogechi has to go back and then take some more things. Then about the ecological zones, the survey shows that the northwestern part of Nigeria are the worst eaters. The southeast part of Nigeria are the best eaters, followed by the southwest, where Clear comes from. You know, the soup is always very heavy, orishi-rishi, roundabout, towel, etc. And of course, the amala with the ewedu, all of them full of minerals, etc. And the bakery soup with pounded yam, that one is also very good. But still, emphasis has to be given on fruits and vegetables and then some milk products.
Prof, thank you. But let me still stay with you because the Minister of Agriculture was recently quoted to have said, and I'd like to quote him, there is a great deal of self-poison in our diet and a great deal of metal poison in our food and injection of dioxin through plastic pathogens, among others. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's quite correct. You know, by the time you harvest, if the harvesting method is not good enough, you've already put some substances into the food. For example, you want to harvest your yam. Then while you're harvesting your yam, your machete cuts a bit of the yam tuber, and before you bring it back to the house, some microorganisms has gone into it. And then even in fruits, it's the same thing. Then, you know, our storage system. Most people would like to put some chemicals into the grain so that they can extend the shelf life and then make sure the pests do not come into it. By putting such chemicals, the food is also being contaminated. And another great thing is vegetables that take about 21 days, 30 days to be harvested, maybe amaranthus, etc., you now apply chemicals. So the toxicity of the chemicals will still remain in the vegetables, even when the vegetable is going to be put into the pot soup. So you now have a situation whereby most of the things we take are chemicalized, and that's why so many of us in agriculture are now saying, please, can we move a little bit to organo, whereby if you want to do your storage, can you do it in a better form, better bags, etc. And then even the harvesting method, if you're doing your harvest, make sure that your harvests are always good enough, and then you make sure that the cuts and then the bruises are not just found there.
But still with you, Professor Gambo, you've already talked about the agroecological zones of the Northwest, the Northeast and Southeast, as well as Southwest. We would like you to also comment on the Middle Belt part of the country, as well as the South-South. You know, what do we find? I mean, there are a lot of, we have a lot of citrus cultivation in the Middle Belt. Then, of course, on the South side, you have a lot of other, fish protein, for instance. But so what are the indicators in terms of the dietary habits arising from the production practices in these areas?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Now, let's rank it the way the survey showed. The survey was looking at what do people eat per day, both men and women and children. And then we also looked at the healthy status of the people in that particular zone. We found out the Southeast to be the best because the mortality rate of women, or rather the birth of women in Southeast, is among the highest in the country, which is directly related to what they eat. You find out that when you go to the East now, you find a woman and her daughter, you might think they are just sisters because they eat very well. Now, still on the ranking, and don't forget, Kingsley, in the Southeast, virtually every home has a garden. Virtually Every home has a garden, and virtually every home has some fruit trees. A mango tree here, a small citrus tree here, a plantain tree here. So you see the family is already completely food secured. Then by the time you move to the southwest, which was ranked second because of the amounts of things they eat, you go to Lagos now. Not that they grow everything, but then the best cows from Maiduguri, from the north, are always being slaughtered in Lagos. The best fish from the shores of the Lake Chad are always being sold in Lagos. So Lagos has the kind of comparative advantage, maybe because of the population and because of the high per capita income per individual. They can actually buy whatever they want, and the best is always go to Lagos. And the same thing in the southwest. So you now have a scenario whereby people can actually eat very healthy and wholesome foods. Number 3 is the middle belt, or the north central part. They also have plenty of fruits. They have the yam tubers. They have plenty of rice. Niger, Nasarawa, Plateau, etc. You see, they have the best, they have a very good climate also that is suitable for the growth of plenty of vegetables, fruits, etc. So that makes them also very, very healthy because you can actually consume what you eat. And then 4th was the northeast, if not for the insurgency. The northeast are very good eaters, most especially the Kanuri people. You see that they eat very healthy. And then there is plenty of milk in the northeast. And there is the kunu that everybody takes in Maiduguri, for example. And the kunu has plenty of milk into it, a kind of fermented milk yogurt, which of course is a milk product. Then of course, you finally move to the, before the northwest, you have the south-south. The south have plenty of proteins, plenty of tubers, roots, etc. But then the feeding habit is not as good as in the southeast. And then finally is the northwest. The northwest has plenty of rice, and I know that in Kebbi State, in Sokoto State, there are families that eat rice for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, for 1 month, for 12 months in a year. This is a basic fact. Rice in the morning, rice in the afternoon, rice at dinner. There are families. In fact, I had a friend in Sokoto when I was doing my doctorate. He told me that since he grew up, that the only food they eat in their house is just rice, rice, rice. Then I asked him what of some other things, maybe once in a while, spaghetti, etc. He said no, they don't do that.
All right, Professor, I'm sure, Kingsley, now you now know the dietary habit of the middle belt.
Well, it's not. Well, that's fine. It's clear, but there are other questions I'll ask the other guests because you just talked about the agroecological zones. I mean, it's clear also that on account of spatial movement, labor mobility, you have persons, you know, say if you go to Kano, for instance, or if you were to go to Maiduguri, you will find persons from the southeast. You know, is it the case that they are necessarily dependent on the foods available solely in that particular area, or they have an admix? So I'm sure Alhaji Ango will also speak to that because you're having variations already. Perhaps for settled populations, that's what the agroecological zones will apply to, I believe. Yes.
But let's bring in Malam Ango. Malam Ango, from your experience, you know, people come to restaurant, they order foods. From the food combination, what can you tell us about the dietary habits of Nigerians? Do they eat to survive, or do they just eat, you know, just whack?
Well, nowadays people are conscious of what they eat, maybe due to the awareness and what have you. Really, those that do come in nowadays, in fact, even when you see them taking starchy food, it goes with much vegetable. We've been experiencing such. In fact, at times when it happens that maybe we've got run out of vegetable, we'll be forced to get more because the demand for vegetable is high now. Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Alhaji Ango. Now let's bring in Dr. Bamidele Omotola, of course, is the chief nutritionist of UNICEF. UNICEF, of course, deals with children, no question about that. So, children, of course, children will go with women, by the way, Claire.
Because children and women, anytime you talk about women...
Yes, you talk about their children.
But I wondered about this the other time. Don't leave out the men in these matters. You know, it's every time, you know, gender. But anyway, Dr. Omotola, what do we know now about the feeding habits of Nigerian children? Again, if we have it across geographical zones, or if we have it across age groups, and how these feeding habits are carried over into adolescence and then into adulthood.
Okay, thank you very much. There's one issue that was mentioned in the program, that there is no complete food, and I think that is also erroneous. Milk, breast milk is complete. It has every nutrient, vitamins, minerals, water, it's complete. And that is what God makes for a child from 0 to 6 months.
By the way, let's be specific. Breast milk is for children.
It's for children, of course.
Complete food for children.
Yes,
and not
it's
for
okay. It's okay. It's okay. And also, the egg is also complete. It's also complete. And so, with that correction, then we can move forward. The statistics of the nutrition situation in Nigeria, particularly with children, is also mirroring what Alhaji Gambo just said. Southeast, South-South have relatively better outlook in terms of the children the number of children that are malnourished, the proportion of those that are malnourished. Next to that is Southwest, and next to that is North Central, and then the worst element is also the Northwest. So you can begin to see they mirror each other with what was found in terms of the dietary practices. And so also linked to that, because the cohort of people we are talking about, children, let's say 0 to 24 months. From 0 to 6 months, we expect a child to be fed exclusively on the breast milk of the mother. But from 6 to 24 months and upward, that child will feed on what is available within the family context. So if the right mix of food groups are not being consumed widely by that family or not made available to that child in terms of feeding, then that child will continue to, will be malnourished. And so that's why the mirror image of what is available within the community is very, very important to be able to nurture a child. Like the Sokoto friend of Alhaji Gambo, who eats rice. So you can be sure that a child less than 12 months, say even if the parents were able to breastfeed adequately, but from 6 months, such a child will be feeding on rice, because that is the only diet the family is conscious of, and that's the only the only food that the family is also aware of. They do not know that even children can also take fruits and vegetables, even adults when they do not take it. So they are not likely going to offer it to children.
All right. Well, I'm just wondering, Dr. Amatola, you said earlier that breast milk is a complete meal on its own.
For children.
Yeah, for children.
Yes, 0 to 6 months.
0 to 6 months. That's
yes.
right. We all had breast milk. Yes. Now, but you also said that egg, as an egg, it's also a complete meal on its own. Now, how many eggs are advisable for an individual to consume on a weekly basis? From a child, to adults. Okay.
For a child can still take an egg a day. But for an adult, that is where the issue lies. Because before you get to that particular age, some of us don't take eggs, not because we don't like eggs, but because we are conscious of the implication for cholesterol. And that's why we avoid taking eggs.
Including quail eggs that have been advertised all over the place?
That's
quail eggs, quail.
I know.
Yeah, they say quail eggs are healthier.
I don't take eggs, for example, and that is me, because of the implications for my cholesterol. And also, you need to also know your own health status. So it's not something that is generic, that you tell everybody not to take eggs because of one thing or the other. You need to know your own health situation before you can.
But what is the nutritional value of eggs to an adult?
It's very, very rich. It's very rich in minerals. It's very, very rich in protein. It's also very, very rich in energy. So, but if you take it sparingly, in any case, any food at all should not be abused. Any food should not be abused.
I just like to ask Dr. Omotola.
Yes.
We have classified our food intakes into categories,
Yes.
you know, carbohydrates and all that. And I'm wondering, does this apply? This is the classification that is used elsewhere, abroad. Does it also apply to us, given our environment and the type of food crops that we grow here?
Incidentally, foods are determined by the community, by what we consider food. The food that you find available in Nigeria may not be applicable to some other climates. In Nigeria, we also have the Federal Ministry of Health has developed a dietary guideline using our own food groups. The 4 food groups that was mentioned, classically we have 5 to 7 food groups, including the fruits and vegetables. So why there are 7 is that fruits are separated from vegetables. But fruits and vegetables are in different classes because they provide different nutrients to the body. And so, as was mentioned, you must, to be able to have an adequate diet, you must be able to take from each of those 5 groups. An egg is only one group. And what you can find in egg, you can find in other foods. Egg is available in Nigeria. Beans is available in Nigeria. Pulses are available in Nigeria. We take a lot of them. There are different kinds of pulses in Nigeria, apart from groundnuts. Groundnuts, beans, they belong to the same group.
All right, Dr. Matola, thank you very much. We will return to both Alhaji Ango and Professor Gambo later on in the course of the conversation. Just clear, I was just wondering, you know, sometimes the size, the quantity of what you eat, because Abatola was saying just now, look, be wary of abuse of food, because you go to some restaurants, particularly the mama put joints, and they say, look, you know, I have a mound of bad that looks like what Chinua Achebe was writing about in Things Fall Apart, that they had to have a handshake, you know, about the pounded yam once it had been decimated to a reasonable level. Dr. Achillehu, that we'll be talking about, you know, the various kinds of food that people eat and so on and so forth in different parts of the country. Perhaps you would like to start by just indicating to us what the you know, heart condition is on account of causative factors arising from how our lifestyle, more particularly what we eat or what we fail to eat.
Thank you very much. I've been enjoying the conversation so far. As a heart specialist, you know, you will expect some bias in the way I make my presentation, because I'm an adult cardiologist. Therefore, my emphasis would be on eating healthy to promote healthy lifestyle. That includes minimizing the amount of saturated fat I take. And the sources of saturated fat include animal products, eggs. So egg might not necessarily be something I would recommend to an adult individual, particularly somebody who has other risks that can increase his saturated fat and therefore translate to deposit of plaques in the vessel wall that can narrow it and have some consequences. Therefore, my emphasis will be more on advising an individual to eat foods that contain polyunsaturated, unsaturated fats, monounsaturated fat.
What are the food sources?
Those are fruits, nuts, fiber-containing foods, like the professor mentioned earlier in the program. We promote individuals to eat more of fiber and fruits. The reason for fiber advice is one, because it tends to bind cholesterol in the digestive system before it gets a chance to be absorbed in the systemic circulation, and therefore has a tendency to lower the bad cholesterol and promote the good cholesterol. So, which is very essential. If the bad cholesterol is high, it's going to be oxidized in the vessel wall. It will narrow the vessel wall and cause a heart attack. So that's not something I will promote. My advice would be more on fruits, vegetables, maintaining a lean body weight, eating more fish. The more the oily the fish is, the better for the individual, because that oil in the fish is omega-3 fatty acid, which you can find in things like shrimp, crayfish, tuna, salmon, mackerel, sardines. Those are the best fishes. You go to a restaurant here or you go to one of these gardens, you find people eating a lot of croakers and catfish and all that. From a nutritional standpoint, those are not the things you should be eating. Not that you can't enjoy a piece of those, but if you're trying to eat fish for healthy reasons, it should be the oily fishes, like I mentioned. And a lot of vegetables. He said something about the South-South.
Yes, sorry, just before you go to the point of the South-South,
Yeah.
the point of fish.
Yes.
You mentioned croakers and you mentioned catfish, because
Yes.
a lot of people go to the market.
That's
You go to the market to find a lot of people buying them. Could you just, expand on the health implications of consumption of those two?
Simply put, the derivative in fish that we encourage people is the oily fish. Like he's a nutritionist, and I agree with me. The more oil you find the fish, the better nutritional value for that fish. And those fishes include, it's a simple crayfish. Has a lot of omega-3 fatty acid, okay? Salmon, which may not be...
That's very expensive, by the way.
Yeah, it's very expensive. but
they are cheaper. They're cheaper because the Titus fish is the one that also contains a lot of omega-3 fatty acids.
Sardines.
And they are the sardines.
Yes.
And they are the cheaper ones in the market
they are
because
cheap.
they are not status fish.
Yeah.
And that's why Nigerians prefer the status fish, like croaker and the catfish that it was mentioned.
Exactly.
But is catfish really, is it a status fish? Because some people, it's been argued that it contains a great deal of cholesterol. I mean, if you see it looks like a raw boy surf, when the...
Well, I don't know what you mean by status, but I can tell you something. But I can tell you something. We have a habit in this country to promote things that have no scientific basis. For example, a guy looks big, his wife gives him food, the wife has to put so much portion of food, meat and everything. If he doesn't do that, it appears that the man is not eating healthy or that the wife is starving him. That's actually wrong. The greener your plate, the better for you. So the idea of putting so much meat, particularly red meat, in any food portion is bad. And the more vegetarian food you eat, the better for you. So you talking about South-South. If you look at the South-South part of the country, they're really endowed when it comes to good protein products. They have shrimps. Periwinkles. Okay, they have a lot of crayfish. They have a lot of fish, and those things we encourage. Even if you go to it's not necessarily correct that the South-South lags behind. Because if you go to places like Calabar or Akwa Ibom, they eat a lot of vegetable-based food. Those are very healthy because they provide you a lot of fiber.
I'm wondering, gentlemen, because these days there's this, people are advised, to do fish farming, to do, go into poultry, and we find a lot of, things that are breeding. People are breeding, this fish.
Yeah, the former deputy governor of Enugu was impeached, although it was overturned because he was running a poultry behind the house.
So what are the health implications of, for instance, the Orobo kind of chicken that you breed, the catfish that we breed, all the things that we breed, do they have any health implications? Please, we will take your response as soon as we come back, because we want to take a vox pop now to listen to what the people are saying on the kind of food that they are eating.
I like eating pounded yam. Anytime, both morning, afternoon, evening. I eat it 3 times in a day. That is what we were trained with. That's from my childhood stage up to this time. So, and I balance it with meat, fish, vegetable, and other things to make it balance. Even though I'm over 50, it doesn't affect me. I have not seen any sign of diabetes, sickness, since I've been eating it.
I prefer bitter leaf soup and balancing this food. The bitter leaf soup, the recipe for the bitter leaf soup includes stockfish, smoked fish, bitter leaves, it's natural bitter leaves, crayfish, possibly if you have shrimps or jumbo prawns, you add it, but they are very expensive. With other, etc., etc. Red palm oil, that is good for vitamin A. That's freshly red palm oil. Water, salt, and seasoning. That's all. Then your akpu is purely starchy food, carbohydrate. But the process of preparing the akpu makes this starch to be highly reduced because it has to be boiled about 3 times or 2.
So which Nigerian food do you like eating?
Akpu, cooked with bitter leaf soup or rice soup. Better still.
Then how do you balance it?
Balance it. How do I balance akpu?
Yes. How do you eat it? How do you?
Yeah, I even know how to prepare it. I've never had no side effects. Even if I take it 3 times a day, it doesn't matter. I still prefer it to any other food.
Which Nigerian food do you like eating and how do you eat it?
Is pounded yam and egusi soup. I don't use spoons, but I use my hand in it.
I like rice and yam. I eat it. At times I eat yam in the morning. Rice I eat it in the afternoon or evening time.
I like tuwo and paladayam, tuwo miyan kuka. Understand me? That one, that's any hunger where you catch you, that if you say chop, you go, your body you go no say yes, you don't chop better food, and all your journey, like this miyan kuka, if you say they eat, other pile they stop you. This miyan kuka, you go stop them. No be all, but you go reduce them. Like if you say get 100 level, you go call like 60 level. 40 you don't go. This thing. Like this palandayam. Some people don't know they like them. Some people don't like them. For my own, that is 2 food, Nigerian food, I like them well.
I like begiri and the wedu. I like pounded yam and banga. I think I'm trying to enjoy some Hausa meals because when I served in the north, I ate couscous and I think I liked it.
One food I like is tuwon shinkafa, the miyan kuka. You prepare the tuwon shinkafa the way we normally prepare it and prepare miyan kuka. When you eat it, because the miyan kuka itself is a medicinal soup. So when you eat it, especially people that have diabetes, if they eat miyan kuka, it works for them.
This is my 2 weeks in this country, and since I came, I like to eat Nigerian rice. Though in my country, rice is my favorite food, and I eat it once a day and take caffeine in the evening.
I enjoy eating fufu with the vegetable soup. I also know that it's very energetic, as a matter of fact. You know, it gives me a lot of energy each time I do that. You know, I think it's my favorite.
All right, Abe, you had a bit of a cross-section of Nigerians there talking about what their preferences are with regard to eating. Pounded yam, vegetable, akpu,
Begiri, ewedu, miyan kuka.
And by the way, begiri, it's very popular in the southwest.
Yes, that's bean soup actually.
Yeah, bean soup. It was
very nutritious.
It was one of the favorites for the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo. He used to take begiri soup a great deal. So, Claire, you posed the question before we had the box pop.
Yes. Okay, let me start with the nutritionist first.
Yes. The issue of what people prefer to eat, like I said earlier, it is culturally based. We only look at food just in the terms of the nutrient content, but food serves more functions than just the nutritional content. And from the listeners, you can see that the cultural value, the cultural understanding, and what they grow up with determines what anybody will eat. Even those of us that are here, we have our preferences. We may have shaped it based on our new knowledge of either Western education or the opportunity we have had to travel around or go to other climes.
But sorry, Dr. Motala, I asked a question. I said, do the poultry that we breed, or about chicken, the very big one, the fish and all that, what are the nutritional implications of consuming them?
For those production, they are not meant for you as a producer to completely consume. They will still serve their purpose. The purpose is that you make it available to the purchasing public to be able to buy. They are themselves not bad. But when you eat much of them, more than the required quantity, and that's why will lead me to what we refer to as the food pyramid. The base of the pyramid, you know what a pyramid looks like. The base of the pyramid is mainly occupied by the grains, the tubers, or what we call the staples in any community. And then as you taper upward, and that's where you find your milk, your source of protein, which is your rubber fish. So the quantity of them depends on each individual person, and they are supposed not to be taken in large proportion. You don't need more than 50 to 100 grams of each compared to the other members of the pyramid, the 5 other members of the pyramid.
Dr. Chidigo, I'm usually very skeptical when I'm buying my chicken. I go for the native chicken, which probably you have little, chemicals and all the feeds and other things.
That's what you should be doing. The chicken that is raised in the poultry environment is less nutritious. It's actually more dangerous than the chicken that you raise in the back of your house. If you go to a store now and buy a chicken, open it up and open up the one that you got from your mama's backyard, you clearly see the fat content. And the fat content of the one you bought that was raised in the poultry is so much. Okay? The same thing with fish. The problem with raising fish, these pond-raised fishes, it's not so much about whether it's catfish or croaker. How are these things raised? The chemicals that they use.
The feeds.
The feeds. Those things are just as dangerous because it's not the fish itself. You have to ask yourself, it's just like somebody going to a restaurant and ordering a plate. It's not so much there's vegetable or not, there's meat. You ask yourself, what type of oil did that restaurant use in preparing the food? Some of them use the trans fat oils that are totally useless. And talking about oils and other components, any oil at all that solidifies at room temperature is not good. Do not reheat it. You understand? So you go to the restaurant.
Dr. Chiluhu, just repeat that for the benefit of our viewers.
Any oil that becomes solid at room temperature is not good. It should not, it has changed, it has transformed to something else. It has become trans fat acid. It should not, and that's why we discourage restaurants from doing such things, because those things have no nutritional value and they're actually dangerous. They raise the component of bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, which is one that oxidizes in the vessel wall to another the vessel wall and cause problems. They lower the component of the good cholesterol, which actually removes those bad ones to metabolize in the liver. So reheating oils. Somebody mentioned, one of the listeners mentioned about palm oil. Palm oil is a source of saturated fat. It's highly component of saturated fat. When it's fresh, it's okay. When you leave it in your house and it becomes solid, do not reheat it and use. It's bad. So it just answers the question about poultry farming. The fish and the fowls you raise in the poultry is not as nutritious as the one you get in the back of your house. Even taste it. You can see the differences in the taste. It's not that you can't eat these things, but you have to minimize intake. Exactly.
All right. Well, Dr. Achille, thank you very much. The only problem is that you might run into some litigation arising from the thought of nuisance if you were raising poultry at the back of your house, because if you're having noise from birds chirping and disturbing you, that's a case of private nuisance. Anyhow, but there's an aspect clear that I would like, Professor Gambo to first speak to before we come back to Alhaji Ango. Professor Gambo, Dr. Achille, who just started now talking about, the implications of certain kinds of oils that we use, which should now lead us to the question of exactly how we prepare the crops that we harvest. In other words, how we prepare our foods, so how we eat. Nobody just, except for, those fruits that are on their own readily edible. Of course, if you harvest yam, you have to prepare it. If you harvest rice, you have to prepare it. What is it that Nigerians are doing? What is it that Nigerians are not getting right with regard to preparation? Overcooking, excessive salt, too much oil, floating floating like Lake Chad where you are there, or Jabi Lake where we are here, or the lagoon in Lagos? Professor Gambo.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Now, let's make something very clear. The whole issue about eating healthy is just moderation. By the time you look at the eating habits of Nigerians, you might think that all of us are carnivores. Meat, chicken, fish, meat, chicken, fish everywhere. All over the country you go, you see that usually the starchy food is 70% of our total consumption. In the northeast where I come from, you find out that the tuwo will be heavy or the brabosco will be heavy, and then you have a small soup that is slimy with some little beans or maybe fish, etc. What we should think about is what actually happens on the farm. If you're going to clear the farm, make sure that you do as good clearing as possible so that chemicals are as much as possible eliminated. Then if you're going to apply the fertilizer, make sure that the fertilizer to be applied are the best suited for that soil and also the best suited for that crops. If you apply a fertilizer that is not suitable for the two things I talked about, the number one problem has come, and that is going to affect even when we eat later. Then another thing is, so many pests and diseases here. You see some armyworms, you see some viruses, fungi on the plants, and people out of desperation because they don't want to lose the plants, and then they now begin to apply burnt diesel. They go to the mechanics when the diesel is being changed, they now collect it, and then they come to the farms to apply. Otapiapia, the one that we used to kill mosquitoes, people are now using it on the farms. So many chemicals that are banned by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations are still in use in Nigeria on the farms. So you now have a situation whereby what you actually go to the market to buy is full of chemicals. But then there is a special thing that one can do. You wash it very well, and then you cook it very well. Let it stay much on the fire. Clear likes the chicken she was talking about. We recommend that if you're going to take the chicken, even the poultry or whatever, you peel the skin. The last time I was telling somebody that you peel the skin of the chicken before you eat it, it's healthier. He told me that he hardly sees chicken in a month, so by the time he sees it, he has to consume virtually everything plus the bones.
Thank you, but you talked about the peeling the skin. For some people, indeed most people, that's the tastiest part of it.
It's also the deadliest, by the way.
That's the tastiest anyway. But let's look at the type of food that the people, Nigerians are eating. If you listen to the Vox Pop, a lot of people say, look, we eat pounded yam, we eat rice and all that. And nutritionists do say that Nigerian cuisines, are one of the healthiest, food you can find. But what should be the combination for diabetes patients? Can they continue to eat pounded yam and vegetables, rice and vegetables, potatoes, vegetables? Is that healthy enough?
Yeah, the high rise of diabetes in Nigeria is because of our feeding habits. I've said it, starch takes about 70%, and from the public view, we heard that everybody is doing akpu, pounded yam, tuwo. All these are pure starch. And by the time you're taking starch intake, the system cannot even digest some of the starch. The enzymes in the body cannot even be able to digest to the fullest some of the starch we're taking. So I personally posit a situation whereby you now have little of the starch and more of vegetables and fruits. For those of us in the north that we like to cook only one vegetable, maybe kuka alone or yakwa alone, that's hibiscus, we now posit, we said you can actually mix 2 or 3 vegetables. And while I was at the National Program for Food Security in Abuja some few years back under the FAO, we actually promoted 2 important vegetables in Nigeria. One is ugu, Telferia occidentalis. We made sure that ugu should not just be a southeastern plant, but ugu should be a national plant. And we succeeded in sensitizing people in the north that ugu is very important, and I'm happy people have actually accepted it in some areas, and Telferia can actually be grown in the north now. And then the second one we did was moringa. the one that is called Zogole moringa oleifera. This is also another heavy vegetable that contains so many nutrients. Moringa contains about 15 times more calcium than milk, and it also contains about 17 times more vitamin C than even oranges. So we now said every day you can put some part of moringa either in the soup or in the salad. But the emphasis is that we have to put more vegetables and fruits into our diet. Then talking about the diabetic patients, no diabetic patients can take pounded yam clear. The rice, there has to be some specialized rice. And then for every diabetic patient, the most important thing is you must take vegetables on daily basis. Maybe salad or lettuce, whatever, amaranthus, cooked, etc. The intake of vegetable is very important, and that is the most important thing that is to be done in the diets of Nigerians. Plenty of vegetables, and also a fruit a day perhaps. Just make sure that you take at least one fruit a day, and that is going to help you. Maybe one mango, a piece of pawpaw, some watermelon, or two, 3 bananas. All this is very important. We should make sure that we supplement the food. The main food we are all eating all over the country is virtually the same. 70% starch and then 30% little vegetables. And then like most of my colleagues said in the studios, the palm oil, you have to be very careful. In the north, there is the cow fat, manshanu, that we use. That one is also terribly bad for the heart. And we want to make people to please stop as much as possible the use of cow fat because it's really very bad for the heart. But then there are certain foods that are also very good for the heart. Grapes, red grapes. You find them all over Abuja, you find them all over the north. Take some red grapes once in a while, and then it cleanses the heart. And then there is what you call the fruit fast in horticulture. If you have any problems, you just go to the market, buy all the available fruits that your pocket can afford, and then you bring it home, maybe on a Friday. Then on Saturday now, you make sure that you don't eat any food at all, only the fruits. Cut the pawpaw, eat. Cut the pineapple, eat. Continue drinking plenty of water. Don't eat any other thing but the fruits. We call that fruit fast. And it's the best way to detoxify the body. And we also want to promote this one also. The fruit fast is very important. It detoxifies the body. It cleanses the system. The heart, the organs, everything. Even the kidney. Because Nigerians take so many things. And another very important thing, clear, it's only human beings that eat when they are not hungry. The fish you're talking about in the pond, by the time you give them the food, if they are not hungry, truly they don't even pick a piece. But then in Nigeria, you go to this house, they give you food, you eat. You go to the next house, they give you food, you eat. You go to the third house, they give you food to eat. On weddings, you see plenty of food. You want to sample everything. You want to sample everything. So moderation is very important. By the time you're eating that way, of course, you know that you are not eating healthy. You come back in the night, and then you have plenty of problems getting sleep, etc. So we have to do some moderation. But then, as a horticulturist, I want to emphasize, really emphasize, that there should be increased intake of fruits and vegetables in the diets of Nigeria. The diabetics and those that are not diabetic should all make it a point of habit that they should at least eat some fruits and vegetables in a day. And that's going to give us some healthy eating habits.
Well, Professor Gambo, once again, thank you very much there for your elaborate explanation. A number of things to actually, discuss further. The fruit salad he was talking about a moment ago, zogole or moringa. Moringa is available now commonly also as in tea bags, so that you can use it as tea, perhaps on a daily basis if that is recommended by your nutritionist. But the salad is the dressing can also be a critical factor if the salad is clean but the dressing is excessive. Yeah,
what's the implication of the salad cream? Some add salad cream and others add mayonnaise.
I think you should, as much as possible, try to eat the salad without those additives. And salad necessarily doesn't mean all those imported vegetables. Like you mentioned, Dogo. I went to restaurants no more here during the Easter, and I was very, very happy to see the restaurant serving a salad that's made purely of ugu, and it was so good. Onions, okra, And there's a local delicacy in around Umuahia area that's called, we call it achara. It's actually grown like it's like a tea, and you eat the stem. It's nothing but fiber. And that thing will diminish the absorption of cholesterol and other bad fatty acids. So there are some local delicacies that we take for granted in our country. The cocoa products, they provide you flavonoids, a lot of vegetables. It's not just in the southeast, even in the middle belt. Benue, for example, I happen to know Benue very well, and I think Benue has a lot of rich source of variety of food items that are very healthy. The same thing in the southwest, the weather you mentioned, it's correct in a sense that if this thing begin to thin out as you go further towards the northwest part of the country.
Kessler, before we take this, let's just ask Alhaji Ango. In preparing your menu, do you take into consideration the food choices of different types of people, considering their health situations? For instance, Professor Gambo has talked about diabetes patients and the type of food choices they should be eating and all that.
Yeah, we do quite okay. In fact, there were instances in which, in fact, some guests came to me and then they would tell me that I'm cautious of what I take. Some would say that they are diabetic, so we want you to prepare something, in fact, that would be good for us. And some will come and say, my BP, in fact, is going high. I want something in which, in fact, it's not oily. And we take into cognizance such requests. We prepare certain things like within the menu. We have something like couscous. We have the beans is there always. And then we have others like the vegetable, as we mentioned, in fact, is always there every day. And then even the okra soup that we do prepare, we do add the ugu into the okra. And then our egusi, we add bitter leaf into it while preparing.
What about the type of oil? Because Doctor actually he was specific about the type of oil that we use in preparing our dishes.
Normally, my oil is obtainable in one particular place. I'm used to that particular
place. What type of oil? Do you use vegetable or
It's vegetable oil we do by which it has been inscribed non-cholesterol. That is what we do go for. And we do go, that particular place because we want to avoid a situation in which maybe you may get something contaminated. And when you get, in fact, the particular place, in fact, in which you've gotten that vegetable, so that you take caution next time, in fact, you buy the vegetable oil.
I don't know how much public enlightenment that we have. Alhaji Ango here is speaking of it's a restaurateur. Of course, that's a higher grade for diners. But if you were to go to the regular mama put, the corner, cafeteria and so on and so forth, you would find. You go, you see their stew. You'd see that, of course, you have red meat competing for space, and then oil is floating on top, etc., as it is said. Perhaps that's one area that will need some public enlightenment. But in terms of the oils, just before we take the tweets, there was an experiment that I performed over a course of time. Dr. Achilo was saying, look, if oil congeals at room temperature, then there might be some challenge. I've actually put oil in the fridge. You will see some of the vegetable oil will congeal, and then there's one particular type that doesn't congeal. I've stuck with the one that doesn't congeal.
We've done the right thing. As much as possible, you should use plant-based oils, typically olive oil, canola oil, soil derivatives, things like that. Those are the good oils. The problem I have with restaurants is that he's saying what people tell you when they come in, they prepare for them. There's no doubt that that's a proper thing to do. But you see, I also been to restaurants and seen, without them knowing who I am, I try to peep into what they use, the type of oil. You see a barrel of oil sitting out there somewhere that is perpetually used. Yeah. And that is wrong, because that's actually very dangerous oil. And the palm oil is very popular in the southeast part of the country. Like I said, when it is fresh, it's okay. When it becomes solid, you probably should be cautious using it, because it's gone through a process of saponification. It's something else already. Okay? So those are the cautions. Diabetes is a big problem in the country. Why? Because of families not doing what we did when we were young kids. The type of food people ate, no exercise, Coke, Fanta, all these the carbonated products that have no nutritional value. If our kids are big, the burden of diabetes is going to increase because of those practices. Salt load in the diet. If somebody doesn't taste the salt, he doesn't think he's eating a good. That's not good. Those are just.
All right, Dr. Chiligo Kingsley.
All right, let's take your reaction. Sorry, we've not focused on the viewers who've been sending in their comments. Sandy Makalamakuji, one of our regulars, says, aside ignorance, people eat anything to survive in this era because most people can't afford the right food. But you have to be alive anyway. You know, so.
I mean, in our tweet, Kingsley, the funny thing is that we adequately enlightened on the kilocalories content in our daily consumption.
And then we have this from Adebayo Tunji Victor. He tweets, he said, I'm here with you. Good discussion. Some killer diseases come as a result of poor feeding.
And Festus Akiboewa tweets, many Nigerian foods are causing obesity and diabetes to rise, and it's been made worse, or it's been worsened by fast food that are invading Nigeria. And he says, beware.
And then we have this from D.L. Caleb. It says, for the common man, the desirable thing is not always available, so we make do with the available. Hunger must be right. Good morning. Once again, you have to eat right to be alive.
Of course, and Chris says, Simon tweets, yes, food is for the growth of the body, but we must make sure the food we're eating contains all the essential nutrients to make a diet balanced.
All right, this is from Baba Bala Kasina. It says, for Professor Gambo, Northwest eats tuwo and fura mostly. Now, a Hausa man can't spend 2 days without eating tuwo, but can spend days, you know, without rice. But tuwo is rice-based, by the way.
Yeah, there are some that are rice-based, and then there are some that are not.
Okay. Now, in terms again, let's, gentlemen, we're trying to explore further the aspects, just before we wrap up this conversation, aspects of preparation, the so-called processed foods, and Dr. Achille has been talking about, you know, fiber. Let's take the wonder crop of the world. I'm sure we all know what the wonder crop of the world is, which is maize. Found virtually everywhere, everywhere on Earth, you know, except perhaps in the polar regions where you have maize. You know, how you prepare your maize is crucial. One of the commonest diets for President Robert Mugabe, who's well into his 90s now and has been ruling Zimbabwe since 1980, is millie meal. Millie meal is based on maize. You know, because it has roughages, it has fiber, and so on and so forth. What do we need to do in terms of processing of our foods, the allergy angle, you know, what do we need to do? And when I go to the market sometimes, I mean, I see the way some of these items are handled, I get a bit, you know, a bit concerned. You overmeal, you know, the maize, or overmeal your grains, and so on and so forth. So what exactly, you know, should we be taking in terms of how we prepare our food, which ones to go for?
It depends on actually your menu. The menu determines, in fact, whatever you do. In fact, let me give you an example. In my place, in fact, there is a particular diet, I mean, a meal that we do make, which we call brabusco. And that brabusco is the wheat, the local wheat, which is obtainable almost everywhere in the north here. You buy that, and then you take it to mill, in which they will thresh it. After threshing, and then they'll break it into pieces. It's something in which, in fact, it doesn't go to real milling. You break it into pieces. And then when it comes to the cooking, it's something which, in fact, you don't boil or you don't make it. In fact, it's something that which you just give it a little simmering, and then, in fact, it goes with the soup.
All right, gentlemen, my question is, for those who do energy demanding work, and you know, just briefly, in 1 minute, your response. For those who do energy demanding work, for those who do not have enough money for, you know, all to obtain this balanced diet, and for those whose jobs make it impossible for them, you know, to have time to prepare a balanced diet, how can they meet up?
Well,
Dr. Matala, quickly, please.
Yes, they can still meet up. I strongly believe that the Nigerian foods does not cost a ham and a leg in this country. I've been to other countries and I know the cost of food. Even though people still claim that we have a recession and the prices of food have gone up, but the quantity that they need to eat to be able to provide what they need is what we are talking about. And it doesn't really cost so much. The same food, if you go to Southwest, you still buy portions for as low as 10, 50 naira portion for the source of energy, because the person that is doing a hard work.
What must the portion contain, briefly?
It must contain the 5 classes. If it's you are talking of the fufu or the eba or the amala, it must come with soup, and the soup must also come with some vegetables. And the vegetables is not only the green leafy vegetable, it also contains tomatoes and the likes. Yes, a little bit of a piece of meat must also come with it. So with 30, 50 naira, I said 50 naira, with 300 or 500 naira,
okay,
you are eating.
Okay. Dr. Chilugo, your very last.
Well, I think eating healthy is not that expensive. I agree with him. In my back of my house, I have every vegetable imaginable in the world. I don't buy any of those things. I have okra, I have ugu, I have all that greens. I grow them myself. So when I go to my place in the southeast, when I want to make soup, I go to the back of my house. I get it all. Number 2, the food you eat, let it be less fat. Saturated fat must produce less than 7% of what you consume, provided the calories. If it is poly unsaturated, it must be 10%. Monounsaturated, 20%. Fiber, at least 30%.
Okay. Bottom line, Chief, you must have enough vegetables in your diet.
Yes. And fruits.
And fruits.
Professor Gambo, at our Maiduguri Network studios, we would like to get your closing thoughts on this. It's been a very interesting conversation. So, on the go for the weekend, you say fasting fruits or fruit fasting for Saturday. That's what you recommended? Want to restart that again?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Now, the overlying issue of my final thought is freshness. Whatever we buy to cook must be fresh. Now, I would have loved to ask Alaji Ango, by the time he prepares for his clients the food, and then there are plenty of unused food, what happens? Do they repeat it in the morning? And it's the same thing in most families. You cook for the day, before you know it, it's not eaten. All you do is you just wrap it in some polythene bag and then you throw it into the fridge. You find out that the food of day before yesterday is there. The soup of last week is also there. The soup of last week is also there. So when you want to do fast food, you just come and heat it and then you give us food. That is wrong. I emphasize freshness. Whatever we're going to take, the fruits, the vegetables, and everything must be fresh.
Professor Abba Gambo of the Department of Crop Production, University of Maiduguri, would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. You joined us from our Maiduguri Network Center. Thanks indeed.
Kingsley.
All right, Claire, just before we sign off, the other guests who are with us here at the headquarters studios, let's take the last set of reactions from our viewers very quickly. Festus Akimboyewa, Nigerians should run away from salt and other unhealthy foods in order to live a healthy and long life. We should stop eating everything and anything.
Yeah. But I do know that Dr. Chilugo here talked about pepper.
No, I skipped that. Healthy. Yeah, okay. Pepper is a good spice, by the way. That's the reason why you had the European explorers come to Africa looking for spices, as well as the Indies, you know, where they went.
All right, Sulaiman Baba Gana tweets, the inclusion of a well-designed food and nutrition at the school-level curriculum will aid in promoting healthy eating habits.
All right, we have another one again from Sulaiman Baba Gana. It says, Nigeria, the size of a person's belly determines the amount of balanced diet a person eats. As the bigger the size, the heavier he is. That's wrong.
All right. Again, Babagana, 1 fruit a day, is it to be taken immediately after meal, or is there going to be a gap in timing? Well,
unfortunately, we have already signed off Professor Gambo. This one is from Ishaq Mudatir. It says, Prof, what's the health implication of consuming GMOs? These are inorganic foods. And then we have this one from Kabir Ibrahim. Are these vegetables to be cooked before eating or not? Because I heard they lose all these vitamins when cooked.
All right. And again, another one to Professor Gambo. A fruit a day, is it to be taken immediately after meal, or should there be gap in timing? But should there be a gap in timing?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Sure.
Not necessarily.
All right.
All right.
Everything
Along together is part of the five food groups.
Everything, of course, in moderation. That's what the experts,
including the wine.
including the wine. It depends on the type, whether it's red or white. But
All right,
more regularly the red, I believe. Yes. We don't make that here. We hope that sometime we'll begin to grow the red grapes and have the wine presses.
They're good.
That's right. All right, Dr. Onye Achiluhu, a cardiologist, always a delight having you at Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
And also the chief nutritionist of UNICEF in Nigeria, that's Dr. Bamidele Omotola. Thanks for your comments. And of course, the restaurant proprietor, Alhaji Kabir Lawa Ango, you can see how trim it looks. It doesn't mean that if you run, a mama push that, or if you run any joint that you should be, that's one of those tweets, said a moment ago. It doesn't have to be this. All right, Alhaji Ango, thanks for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure, King.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Coming up next, our next discussion, and it's time to do marathon.
Marriage. He still treats me like we're married today. You're so lucky.
I am.
I wish I were you.
God, why? Why me?
I wish I was in your shoes. Let us swap positions. We all say these words, but wait a moment. Look beneath the surface. All that glitters may not be gold. The style of Joe may not look good on Peter.
All these boys wearing body hug up and down, making guy left, right, and center. Are they better than me?
You always look mature in your agbada. So what is this you're wearing today?
Your rib-cracking comedy, Professor John Bull, tackles another social issue in Copy. Those who wish to be like others.
Look at me going to a supermarket with common 100 naira bread when my mates are buying things worth 35,000 naira.
No two fingers are equal. Every family must live within their means.
Showing at 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday on NTA Network International and Star Times.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than one sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, or the center of purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
All right, you're welcome back. If you just joined us, of course, it's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We just finished discussing a moment ago eating right, and of course, so that you can live long. Now, one other form of activity that you should participate in, Claire, has to do with regular exercise. The most tedious of such exercises would be a marathon. And this weekend in Abuja, that's Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory, we're having a maiden edition of the Nigerian Armed Forces and Security Agencies Half Marathon. It will take some 21.5 kilometers. We have 2 guests here with us in the studios to discuss this subject matter. First, our own general manager of NTA Sports, Abdul Rahman Ibn Mohammed. Ibn Mohammed, a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning.
Okay. And then we also have with us Air Vice Marshal Dayo Adeluoye. He's Director of Sports at Defense Headquarters. Air Vice Marshal, a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you very much.
All right, let me quickly begin with you. Marathon or long-distance races is not an area that Nigerian athletes, do very well. We have not been able to outplace even the Ethiopians or the Kenyans. What's spurring this very well?
Well, I think looking at where we're coming from, Nigerian armed forces had always been at the forefront of sports in Nigeria, including even this marathon. We have contributed a lot to the national teams. And looking at the way things are now, that sports is a force multiplier. It's a force multiplier to us. And looking at our requirements on day-to-day basis, where we need to be physically fit and also mentally fit, That is why the Chief of Defense Staff of Nigerian Armed Forces decided that it's okay. What he will do is to take up a half marathon to start with, using the Lagos marathon as a template. And this is the maiden edition of the half marathon.
It is the first time you're going to involve other security agencies. Is there any particular reason?
We have always been having Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies games, but the last time we had was 2009 in Owerri. Because of the security challenges we've been having all over the country, it has been pushed to the back burners. So now that the situation is a little bit better, we're trying to bring it back to where it should be. And don't forget that the sports, as it is a unifying factor, and it's a way of also communicating. So away from operational area, and since you need all the security agencies to come together as one, always, in order to confront the challenges of Boko Haram and other issues that we have in our environment. That is why it is very important for us to bring everybody on board, away from the operational area, even at the field of sports.
All right, Air Vice Marshal, tell us about the issues concerning the half marathon. When is it taking place? Where is it taking place? What is happening? What will happen with regard to the routine? Are you going to have a lockdown? Are you going to have closure to traffic and so on and so forth?
Obviously, we're going to have, but all this has been taken care of at the preparation stage. All the stakeholders have been involved in this preparation. The Athletics Federation of Nigeria, who sets the standards for marathon in this country, the Federal Capital Development Authority, they've been brought on board, and we have gone as far as advertising this competition that is coming up on Saturday, both on the radio and on the television to Nigerians, so that they will know what is at stake on Saturday morning. The half marathon is a 21.5 kilometers race. It's going to start from the Area 1 Stadium roundabout, thereabout, just by the velodrome there, the stadium. And it's going to take all the way to Beja, from Beja bus stop to Tipper Garage, and then turning right to the Asokoro area, passing the W. Bassi Barracks, Niger Barracks, up to AYA. From AYA, then turn left to enter Mogadishu Cantonment. Every arrangement has been made in terms, very elaborate arrangements have been made in terms of traffic control. We're not going to close down the road completely. Yes, usual efforts have been made so that we will not inconvenience Nigerians on that Saturday morning. It's going to start by 6 a.m. and we expect that maximum will be about 4 hours, no more than 4 hours.
What is at stake?
Well,
trophies, cash prizes?
Yes, trophies, cash prizes, and certificates. But majorly, the major issue we are focusing on is the synergy among the Nigerian Armed Forces and the security agencies.
Okay.
So in other words, the participants are members of the armed forces and security agencies.
Yes, absolutely. And some veterans from the armed forces too.
From the services.
For the services.
All right, Abdurrahman, what is the role of NTA in all of this?
Well, NTA is on board on this because, number one, it is a sporting event, and NTA has a specialist sports agency which I am privileged to head. So we are in this because we are going to cover it live. It's a huge challenge to us. It's a trial, and we believe we're going to convince Nigerians. This is something that has not been done for quite a while. From the days when a beverages company in the late 80s and early 90s used to run a marathon, national marathon in Lagos, things have gone down. No such competitions have come on board. So we welcome the initiative by the military authorities. It's really going to give us a huge task, which we are really very, very ready. We have synergized, we have prepared.
we're going to give you a good coverage. It's going to come on the NTA Live.
Do we have the equipment to give wide coverage?
Yes,
what equipment do we have?
Yes, we do. It's a trial, as they say, will convince you. We have we're deploying as much as we can. We do believe it's a challenge that is we're
How many OB vans are we using?
We're deploying 3 OB vans. We're deploying 2 drones. We're deploying a number of TV backpacks, and we are set to go. We have sought the operation of the military. One of the challenges we'll face is when we deploy our OB vans, which we have to do overnight because it's not a 1 or 2 hour business. It's a matter of security, so that our very expensive equipment are not vandalized if they are left untended. If we leave our security men that are not armed, any hoodlum can come in and deal with them. So we're asking the military that is asking us to cooperate with them to also cooperate with us, make sure our equipment are safe, and we'll give it our best shot.
All right. Usually, as you very well know, AVM, Dayo Adeluloye, it's, crowd participation in, or spectator participation in the marathons is usually very important. You have the spectators who line the route, cheering, applauding, some of them handing out, water sachets or water bottles. Do we have a sense of what the public participation might be in terms of spectating?
Yeah, the way it is now, we have, among the within the armed forces and the security agencies, at least even within Abuja here, we have synthesized our people. They are all going to come out that day. There have been jingles, we've been playing jingles on the radio. We expect a lot of people to turn out. Along the routes, there are points that have been designated, which are going to be water points, the sponge points, the fruit points, which are going to be manned by technical officials of Athletics Federation of Nigeria and the security agencies. So all those structures have been put in place already. They are all in place, and we expect that for the fact that it's taking place on Saturday morning, and it's a work-free day, that a lot of people is going to attract a lot of people to turn out and on the routes.
All right, let's take off time. You said it's 6 a.m.
6 a.m.
6 a.m. All right. So, well, gentlemen, we wish you the very best. Claire.
Yes,
you and I belong to the armed forces.
No, I was just going to tell Madam Abdurrahman, yes, this is an area that I actually participated in the past, but we have not been able to break the jinx of the East Africans. And maybe next time when we have you on, we'll talk about a bit more about marathon races in Nigeria. But we do want to appreciate both of you, the Air Vice Marshal Dayo Adeluloye, Director of Sports, Defense Headquarters, for coming to share with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Abdurrahman Ibe Mohammed, GM NTA Sports. Thank you very much, sir.
We're all together.
So before we finally go, please, I would like to appreciate the contribution of the Nigerian Air Force, the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Air Force, the Nigerian Police, the prisons, the immigration, the customs,
civil defense.
Yes, civil defense.
You want to talk about DSS?
Yes, fire.
I'm sure they're all aware. They all know.
Yes,
they all know. Thank you.
All right. Well, that does it now for the 2 discussion topics that we have this morning. Let's call it a day. And the last item for us. Oh, I thought we were going to have the weather report, but if we can get a weather report,
no
all right,
weather
so
report
we
today.
understand. But so it was windy. It was windy yesterday evening.
But it didn't rain.
It didn't rain, unfortunately. That's the federal capital.
We do hope it doesn't rain tomorrow.
Okay, well, of course. If it rains, that will also be good. That's part of the marathon, half marathon. All right, so that does it for us. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Thank you for being with us today, and indeed for all of the week. We wish you a lovely weekend. See you on Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning.
And my name is Claire Delabo Abdurrazak. Bye for now.